Hello and welcome to my casual review of the Patek 5270P. This watch was generously loaned to me by a good friend, and I'll be sharing my experiences and stories with the watch after wearing it for over 2 months. Let's get started. Patek has never been a brand I've been particularly fond of for at least 2 reasons. For one, I think many people buy it for the hype and resale value, rather than because they appreciate the watches. Secondly, I think other brands like Lange and Vacheron offer better watches in various price ranges. Grand complications are another story though. I've always been curious about this mythical category, since collectors have often said they're on another level compared to anything else from the brand. It's so ironic that Patek's best watches are often used as a bundle for the basic steel ones. The obsession with the 5270P came late when I first saw the watch in person at the 2021 Only Watch exhibition. What got me intrigued was the salmon dial, which looks flat in photos but is really metallic in person. A funny story is that this event is where I first saw my friend, who would go on to loan me this watch. At the time, we didn't know each other. When the chance came about to experience the 5270P, it was like checking off a watch bucket list item. And to my pleasant surprise, it exceeded all my expectations. The watch is really damn special. I used to own a 5711A and 5110J, but when putting the 5270P on, there's this feeling that I'm not just wearing any Patek, but the Patek. In my eyes, perpetual chronographs like this are what the brand is actually about. Even as a Patek skeptic, I have to admit there are many things this watch does amazingly. The first is the case and lug design. Patek has incorporated so many curves and angles that accentuate how shiny the mirror-polished platinum is. Another thing is how the design hides the thickness of the watch. Firstly, the bezel slopes down aggressively, making the 5270P look sleeker when viewing the watch top-down and from the side. Next, the midsection of the watch is actually quite thin, with Patek opting to have a substantial amount of thickness below. This is clever since given the meaty nature of our wrists, the watch sinks in and hides some of its substance. My second highlight is the caseback. There's enough depth and complexity here to rival Lange's chronograph casebacks. Also, finishing is great with no imperfections to be found with my macro lens. A fun fact is that Patek's casebacks tend to be large and clean, since they opt to engrave all the information on the movement itself, rather than littering text all around the display. Saving the best until last, my final highlight of the 5270P is the dial. The sheer range of color that this dial can show is amazing. It can vary from a deep metallic pink to a light matte peach, depending on lighting and angle. I also really like the dial layout. While some may think it's too much, I think the dial is well spaced out. Each piece of information can be easily told at a glance. Compare this to my overseas perpetual, where you need a magnifying glass to read the month. My favorite part of the 5270P dial is surprisingly the black polish. I think the black polish on the hands and hour markers of the 5270P are the best I've seen on any watch. It also works so well on the pyramid hour markers as they play with light exceptionally. While there's a lot to love about the 5270P, it's not a perfect watch. For one, I think the Lange equivalent has far better pusher feel. The 5270P pushers are weird since it takes a lot of force to start the chronograph, while resetting it generates zero feedback. Another issue as a person who loves to frequently wear their watches is the lack of a power reserve. Finally, let's talk about market values of the watch. As always, the rumored discontinuation of the 5270P resulted in its market value spiking. For the longest time, It traded about retail or at a discount. But now, the 5270P is a good 100K above retail. This frustrates the heck out of me. I've never understood why some watch collectors get so horny for the word discontinuation, since it is often followed by a newer, improved version of the watch. But rant aside, I don't think the 5270P is worth the premium. Yes, it has plenty going for it that makes it collectible, but at that price, I just get a 5204 instead. It's a more elegant size and has an awesome split-second chronograph that feels great to press. Also, let's keep in mind that the Lange Datograph Perpetual retails at 207K and has a flyback chronograph. This makes it much cheaper than even the gold 5270 variants. To end this watch talk with a funny story, I've been told that the 5270 movement can be quite unreliable. Apparently, a big collector had the 5270P malfunction several times, ranging from the chronograph and perpetual calendar not working properly to the watch randomly stopping. Looking at the razor-thin movement components on the case back, one can imagine why. The hilarious part is, after sending the watch in for servicing several times, including a full overhaul, Patek eventually allocated him a green 5711 as an apology. Moral of the story is, if you're waiting for your next Patek sports watch, don't bother bundling. Just give your high complication a few shakes and pray for the worst. Thank you for watching, and please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. Next up will probably be the Kari Voutilainen.